29 November 2020, and I'm joined by Mr. Albert Matapo from the Zimbabwe People Power Movement. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. Thank you, Mr. Gambakwe. It's a pleasure to be with you again today.
Thank you very much, sir. And today we are going to be talking about the situation in Mozambique. After a long time, the SADC leadership have agreed that there needs to be a deployment of military in Mozambique. Do you think this decision came in time? And why has there been such a long delay?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Gambakwe. I'm sure you have left out the fact that this is not the first agreement that the SADC has made. They made other agreements in the past, but unfortunately, those agreements were never adhered to. So here is another agreement once again, but I don't think this agreement came on time because this problem has been there since October 2017, and now we are in 2020. It's almost 3 years down the line. This is said. It has not come on time. That's in short what I can say.
Okay, so what are the factors that have pushed SADC to make this decision again? What has happened in recent days to make them say now we need to go in?
Yeah, I think because the problem has taken, actually it's more than 3 years if we count from October 2017 up to now. This is November, almost December 2020. There have been several factors because the conflict has now become bigger than it was before. The insurgents are actually pushing forward inland, and they have taken a larger ground so far. They have managed to occupy quite a large ground in Mozambique, and several people have been killed, and a lot more than hundreds of thousands have been driven from their homes. And because of that, the SADC is now afraid that the conflict can actually then overspill into other countries. And this has been the warning that we gave them a long time ago. If you remember, we have always been talking about this and giving them advice that they should take action, but nothing has been happening. So that is what I think.
Okay, so let's look at the human rights abuses. There has been a number of events that resulted in the death of a lot of people, some of it very graphic and recorded on video. Do you think this has pushed the leaders in Southern Africa out of the pressure of these incidents to end up deploying when they actually don't have a plan?
I don't think that is the main driving factor, because ever since these people started in October 2017, there have been serious abuses going on. Even if that abuse is done on one person, that is not a good thing to see. But I feel that now the leaders are seeing that the situation is now coming to a point of threatening them. It is a question of them being threatened. And now they are fearing for themselves that these armed conflicts can actually overspill to them. So it is more of their own security that they now want to, come in and fight these insurgents more than anything else, because these abuses have been there. Yes, they've increased, but that's not the driving factor as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, I want to play a small clip of what you said on 20 May. That is a long time ago about this situation. Then maybe we can ask the next question after that.
Africa can actually come
and cover in the water. And also South Africa can bring their aeroplanes, and then Zimbabwe can provide ground, and also Zambia and possibly Namibia and Botswana. They also have, like Botswana, they've got sophisticated artillery pieces, as well as mechanized equipment. They have highly sophisticated, which are far advanced than what we have. And so they can cover from the rear, because they can deploy even, at the border of Zimbabwe and Mozambique. Botswana can deploy them. And Zimbabwean infantry men can then be on the ground, in front, while Botswana and Namibia could be covering from the rear, firing, artillery pieces, and also firing the mechanized machinery. So that can be the setup. It can be Zimbabwe and Zambia maybe on the ground mainly, South Africa in the water as well as in the air, and Botswana and Namibia covering from the rear using their artillery pieces as well as their mechanized units. So I think it can be like that. And also Tanzania from the other side can provide infantry as well, also on the ground. And once they do that, then that should be 3 months' time they clear those idiots.
Okay. So, Mr. Matapo, you can see that you gave advice in May. So if this advice had been taken June, July, August, by now this war was going to have been cleared. Yes. Do you think there was a lack of leadership? What caused this delay?
Yes, there are a multiplicity of problems as far as I see it. The first one being that it's about interests. It's about, they thought that the problem could be possibly solved by merely the Mozambican, forces. And secondly, there is a lot of hypothesis. Who is actually sponsoring these insurgents? Why are they there? And who is involved and who is not involved? So there could be some former leaders or those part of possibly Mozambican government that are involved in this kind of conflict. So it could be a conflict that involves partly to do with some leaders who might be former or something. This is quite serious, because if this is allowed to continue, this can be a precedent that is being set. And, who knows, the other former, leaders, for example, in Zimbabwe, we've got G40, we refer to them as former. They can actually also copy that. If it is true that former leaders of some former leaders of Mozambique could be involved, then it means that that can be a precedent that has been set, and that can actually be used, which is very bad, which is very, very sad, because we do not condone any kind of terrorism in Africa. Terrorism is the last thing that Africa should entertain. I am opposed to the ZANU government, but I'm totally and equally opposed to the, to terrorism. So there are a multiplicity of problems. Also, the third reason, of course, is lack of capacity as well as ideas. And they refuse to take ideas, even if they are noble ideas, simply because these ideas have been brought up by people who oppose them. They sometimes do not want to take them. So the willpower is not there. They want to do things which then are seen as if it's them who have done it. And yet they run short of ideas. Like ZANU-PF, they are clueless, they have no ideas. That's why they have destroyed Zimbabwe. That's why the only ideas that they have are to steal elections, to murder people, to do bad things to Zimbabweans, seeing Zimbabweans suffering, and those are some of the reasons. There could be more.
South Africa, AU, United Nations, have they failed to intervene during the time when we saw, for example, 50 people killed in a field and a woman being shot multiple times in public? Are these other bodies like the AU and the United Nations, do they not have a role to play in Mozambique?
They do have a role to play. Yes, that's a total failure of national and international leaders. We would expect to see United Nations coming in. We would expect to see African Union playing a role. Terrorism, as I know it, it's an international problem. It's not just a national problem. So whenever terrorism somehow occurs in a particular nation or a part of the world, it becomes a responsibility of the international community as a whole. And so it should not simply be funded by a particular nation, like in this case by Mozambique, but it should be funded by the international community, because that problem itself is escalating, is growing, is getting bigger. And once it gets bigger, then it will be very difficult. So we cannot allow seeds of evil, seeds of darkness to be allowed to thrive in some part of the world. So I feel that it is the responsibility of United Nations, it is the responsibility of all nations in the world to ensure that this terrorism in this part of Africa is uprooted as quickly as is possible. We don't want to be another Somalia. We don't want to be another Libya. We want to have our peace and tranquility. Yes, we have problems, but we will solve them in one way or the other, but not through acts of terrorism. That is unacceptable. So, yes, everybody has the responsibility. We should all talk we should all speak against terrorism. And so even funding should come from everybody. Everyone across the world should make sure that we help in making sure these terrorists are uprooted.
Okay, now let's look at the gas project that is there in Mozambique. How long before the terrorists are powerful enough to attack it? And do the owners of this project have a role to play in assisting SADC with resources to fight the terrorists?
Yeah, I feel that it's not a long time that is needed for the terrorists to actually attack and take over the gas fields. That is the main reason why they're fighting there, because of the resources that are in that part of the world. So it is not a long time that is needed for them to attack. Now, those companies or organizations that are running the gas project, yes, they have a role to play, like everybody else, as I've said, that we all have a role to play in making sure that those terrorists have been removed. Because today is Mozambique, tomorrow it's Zimbabwe, the other day is South Africa, and like that. So we all have a role to play to make sure that those terrorists have been removed. So those gas companies and organizations that are in Mozambique, they have a role, a very big role, because they are affected, directly. So they have a role. That is very true.
Okay, then as an extension to that question, how long before the terrorists are powerful enough to attack neighboring countries?
Yes, as soon as they manage to get sufficient resources within that particular region, then obviously they will have that will give them an appetite to move to other nations and also take over. Tomorrow they will take over our diamond mine. and then next time they will go to the platinum mine and other resources in different parts of Zimbabwe, sometimes South Africa, sometimes other countries. So as far as I'm concerned, it's not a long time that is required for them to be able to have the sufficient muscle to take over and be a menace in the war region. It's not a long time. We should act with the speed of lightning to make sure that we deal with the terrorists now and forever.
Okay, then let's say the terrorists, since they've got not much to lose compared to a country, is SADC going into Mozambique, not a declaration of war, so that the terrorists can just leave Mozambique and start attacking the other countries instead?
There is no plan. If those terrorists decide to attack Southern Africa at once, they can do it, and we will not be able to respond appropriately. By the time we come in to respond, our people would have been affected so heavily because our borders are porous everywhere. And so they can go anywhere at any time. They can do anything as they feel. So all I'm saying is we are not ready. Southern African leaders are not ready. They do not have solid plans. Zimbabwe soldiers in particular are not ready because they are not well equipped, and Zimbabwe cannot afford to give them enough uniforms, to give them enough salaries. We don't want a repetition of what happened in DRC, where our soldiers perished, our equipment was destroyed, and our soldiers were underpaid. You know, a lot of money was coming from United Nations for our soldiers to be paid in salaries, but that money was being looted by generals, by the Zimbabwe leaders. We don't want that kind of thing to repeat because these are innocent souls. Our soldiers deserve better. Zimbabwe is not ready.
Okay. What are the likelihood, or what is the likelihood of a defeat for SADC in Mozambique?
Yeah, unless otherwise these terrorists are being supported by and directly by heavy superpowers and those mini superpowers like Iran, like North Korea. But otherwise, our SADC leaders are letting us down. Those lives that are being lost are lives that should not lose their lives. So that's all I can say for now, Mr. Gamba.
Is there anything else you want to say before we close?
I come back to Zimbabwe. This is about Zimbabweans. Zimbabweans, I mean, my heart bleeds when I see you suffering. When I see Zimbabweans suffering, I get hurt because of the suffering. It is the only reason why we are suffering. In fact, there are two reasons why we are suffering. The first one is because of ignorance. People do not know that it is them who can actually liberate themselves. The opportunity to liberate yourselves can only come from you. And we have to unite to be able to bring this freedom. And secondly, it's because of fear of unknown. We are being ruled by ruthless people, by clueless leaders who do not have us at heart. We need to unite and do something. We have a formula. I told you that we have a formula, but unfortunately, the support that we are getting is not that massive. We need every other Zimbabwean to be behind the Zimbabwe People Power Movement. I know you are waiting for politicians. I know you are waiting for political parties to do miracles. There are no miracles that are coming. It is only Zimbabwe People Power Movement now that is seeking to unite everybody in the whole country. Otherwise, most politicians are just fighting for their own stomachs. They are fighting for themselves and not for Zimbabweans. I know they can say that they are fighting for Zimbabweans. I am not fighting anyone, but I am saying, as Zimbabweans, this is time that we should unite and deal with this problem as a nation, not waiting for some other person to do it for you. Please come forward to Zimbabwe People Power Movement so that we can fight together. We can be one thing. There is a lot that is going on. Can you join in, be part of it, so that we get to a certain point and be free? Thank you very much, Zimbabweans. I love you so much.